Welcome, and thank you for joining us today, this morning, for the Making College Success, a Reality for New York's Youth in Care webinar. Today's presentation is presented in partnership with the New York State Education Department, New York State Office of Children and Family Services, CUNY and SUNY. We will focus on providing you information regarding the Foster Youth College Success Initiatives, program implementation, and funding distribution for the 2021-2022 academic year. My name is Yolanda McBride, and I'm the Director of Public Policy at Children's Aid, a multi-service human service organization with the mission of ensuring children, youth, and families succeed and thrive. Joining me today are several presenters and advocates. Jasmine Hooper, Director of the Foster Youth Success Alliance, Dr. Christopher Fernando, who has 20 years of experience in higher education. He currently works for the New York State Education Department in the Office of Access, Equity, and Community Engagement Services, and he is a supervisor of higher education programs for the Office of Post-Secondary Access, Support, and Success. Kenneth Curtin is a program manager at the New York State Office of Children and Family Services, focusing on higher education and transition services initiatives that support youth in care. He is also the Education Training Voucher Coordinator for New York State and has more than 10 years of experience in youth development. He is dedicated to ensuring all youth have the resources and skills they need to successfully transition to adulthood. Dr. Shirley DePena is the Director of the Foster Youth College Success Initiative at CUNY. She is also an organizational consultant and an adjunct professor at the NYS Silver School of Social Work and Silberman School of Social Work at Hunter College. Previously, she worked at the Jewish Board for 14 years, first as a social worker and later as an administrator. Jose Aguiman has a dual role within the Office of Opportunities at SUNY System Administration. As campus liaison, he works with the Educational Opportunity Program directors at the Colleges of Technology to ensure proper fund management and efficient program execution to support EOP students as SUNY's FISCE coordinator. He works with SCD, OCFS, Children's Aid, SUNY System, as well as the SUNY campuses to manage funds and execute college success policies that affect all current and former foster youth from SUNY who participate in FISCE. And then we also have our special guest, Dominique Dillon Tatum, our 2021 graduate of John Jay College, who will give us a few words later about how the Foster Youth College Success Initiative funding supported her ability to graduate from college. So in terms of the agenda, we will first kick it off with a little bit of background on the Foster Youth College Success Initiative and FYSA, the Fostering Youth College FYSA. And then also we will go into the program implementation piece, student eligibility, and then also hear from CUNY and SUNY. Lastly, we will have a time for live Q&A and answer any questions you all may have. Few housekeeping rules. Everyone will be in listen mode only. If you have questions, please use the Q&A feature. We will monitor questions and address them at the end of this presentation. This presentation will be recorded and will be available on the FYSA College Success Resource Guide website. All of the slides, resources, and materials we covered during this presentation will be included and uploaded to the website. I will now turn it over to Jasmine to provide some additional background on the Fostering Youth College Success Alliance.
Thank you so much, Yolanda, and good morning, everyone. My name is Jasmine Hooper, and I'm the Director of the Fostering Youth Success Alliance. The Fostering Youth Success Alliance, or FYSA, is housed at Children's Aid and was launched in 2014 to promote responsive policies and programs that offer young people with a foster care background every opportunity to set higher expectations and achieve their goals. We do this by collaborating and partnering with cities and state agencies, advocates, and stakeholders directly impacted by the foster care system, including foster youth, parents, and caretakers to address system reform. We also provide opportunities to support foster youth, empowerment, and the development of advocacy skills through several programs and events, including our New York State and New York City Shadow Days, Foster Youth Shadow Days, our annual FYSA Advocacy Day at the State Capitol in Albany, New York. We also have a student advocate program, which again, you'll hear from one of our amazing student advocates, Dillon Tatum. Most recently, our foster youth online forums that focus on the needs of youth in care during the pandemic and after the pandemic. And just last week, we hosted our very first ever celebration for the 2020 and 2021 college graduates with a foster care background who received funding from the Foster Youth College Success Initiative. Now I'm going to talk a little bit more about why we need to make college success a reality for New York's foster youth. As we know, education is a pathway out of poverty, and we believe that youth in care deserve every opportunity to be their best selves. And FISA has worked very hard to change the perception about foster youth excelling academically at the higher education level because we know they can. Today, we are proud to say that New York is one of 22 states supporting post-secondary education success and supporting youth in care. However, when we started 7 years ago, the educational data was not great, and it still isn't today. 65% of youth in care are completing high school by age 21. 65% of youth in care were completing age by 21. 31 to 45% of foster youth enroll in college at some point, but only 3 to 11% of students from foster care were attaining a bachelor's degree. And we hope to change that with this program. And I'll share a little bit more background on the Foster Youth College Success Initiative. So FISA commissioned 2 reports to make the case for why New York State needed to create a college initiative for youth with a foster care background. One being Fostering Independence, the need for statewide fostering youth college success initiative. And the second being Bridging the Gap from foster care to college success in New York. In 2014, an advocacy campaign was launched involving youth, foster care agencies, advocates, government agencies, and elected officials. In 2015, the Foster Youth College Success Initiative was established, thank goodness. The college initiative supports current and former foster youth attending public and private colleges and universities in New York State. And to date, we have received $34 million that have been invested in the initiative. And over 2,000 students with a foster care background attending over 100 public and private colleges and universities in New York State have been served by this program. A part of our initiative is the College Success Resource Guide. In February of last year, the Making College Success Resource Guide was launched, and it is a really great tool and resource for college administrators, foster care agency staff, youth, and families to understand the college going process. This guide has 6 chapters, and we encourage you to continue to utilize the website as there have been some updates made to the website. Many of the changes are related to the additional availability of financial aid due to additional stimulus funds that the state received. And we will have another webinar around mid-July that will focus specifically on financial aid for youth in care. So please be sure to look out for more details on that webinar. We will also put the website address to the Making College Success Resource Guide in the chat for you to visit. Now, I will turn it over to our wonderful FISA student advocate, Dominique Dillon Tatum.
Thank you so much, Jasmine. I'm Jasmine. Good morning, everyone. It's such a pleasure to be here and to share my story. And I want to just speak with you all about how FISA and how FISE has benefited me in a non-traditional way. So typically I would just speak about how FISE has benefited me in terms of I live in my own apartment, so it has helped me to not take out as much loans. It has helped me to not worry about the financial burden about school. And towards the ending of my year has definitely helped me with completing my last courses in which I needed tutoring in that I couldn't find before then. So I'm so grateful to still have had that tutor throughout that last trial that was very necessary for me. But FISA for me is more than just a program that fills the gap for youth in care. As a foster youth, I feel like I've been looking for a place for where my foster home would step in and assume that responsibility and act in the best interest of me. And I don't think I found that in any of the homes, but I've definitely found that inside of FISA. And working with FISA as a student advocate and just also being a recipient of the program, FISA has built my confidence. FISA has encouraged me. FISA has just continued to talk to me and just speak out all of the negative thoughts that I have inside of my head. So I feel like FISA is a program that is necessary for youth in care, just not on an educational level, but also on an emotional and mental level, because they fill that gap that we may not get from other people. And as a 2021 graduate, and not having that type of support system coming from like my biological family, FISA was there. FISA is a family, it's a community. And one thing that I'm really looking forward to moving forward is facing my fears. I've always been afraid of the unknown. And FISA has broken down that mentality for me. And we have been through this over and over, even with our supervisor or like with Jasmine or even some of the other advocates. It's a community where we can come and feel safe and we can speak, and we can also brainstorm some new ideas of like some things that we can do to move forward. And without FISA, I honestly wouldn't have gotten through my last year of college, because it was honestly the most difficult time of my life, just dealing with so much personally going on outside of education. And FISA stepped in and they showed out. So I'm so grateful, and I'm just so appreciative of FISA for being there for me and willing to be there like through thick and thin for all college students. And I really want to encourage our graduates, or just encourage the people who are still in school, to not give up. The road isn't easy, but giving up isn't going to do you any justice. When you have people by your side that are willing to hold your hand, when you have people by your side that are willing to take that walk with you. And in the beginning, it may feel uncomfortable. It may feel like something that you're not accustomed to. It may feel like something that is the unknown, but that's what you have to face, because that's what makes you stronger, and that's what builds character. And without FISA, I wouldn't have applied, or I wouldn't feel the confidence to apply to positions or scholarships or things that just interest me as someone who's interested in law. And I decided to do that and got a Manhattan prep scholarship for the summer. And I'm just so grateful, because without FISA, I honestly, I wouldn't be able to speak to you all today. I wouldn't feel proud of myself for my accomplishments, despite anything that I've been through on this journey. And I want to thank all of you for being here, all of you for listening to me. And I want to just inspire all of you to chase after your dreams. No matter how far they may seem, you can always get up again and try again. Thank you so much.
All right. So let me, I think, just say what I think everyone else wants to say to you, Dylan. Thank you for sharing your story. Thank you for the inspirational words. And thank you for sharing your courage and your story. And congratulations. Congratulations on graduating. So it's a great segue to into this section where we're going to talk more about the Foster Youth College Success Initiative and why it's important, and to kind of review this process that, yes, can be kind of complicated, but is key to try and providing these supports that Dylan described. So let me begin saying good morning, and that my name is Chris Fernando. I'm a supervisor of higher education programs at the New York State Education Department. The office I work in, OACs, or the Office of Access, Equity, and Community Engagement Services, oversees many opportunity programs whose mission is to provide support to New York State students particularly those from disadvantaged, underrepresented, and low-income backgrounds. Some of the opportunity programs in our office include the Higher Education Opportunities Program, HEOP, the Liberty Partnerships Program, LPP, C-STEP and STEP, Collegiate Science and Technology Entry Program, Science and Technology Entry Program, and the My Brother's Keeper programs as well. Just to kind of go over a little bit of the FYCSI program, I'm excited to talk to you today to review the process and the necessary steps so that your students and your college or university can receive 2021-22 FYCSI funds. So let me begin with a very brief program overview. FYCSI funds were first allocated in 2014-2015 to provide support to foster youth and orphans to pursue, succeed in, and graduate from higher education with an undergraduate degree. Please note that FYCSI funds is not for graduate students, nor for students seeking to complete a second baccalaureate degree. Please also note that it expands access to students attending a CUNY college, a SUNY college, and/or a private independent university that hosts an HEOP program. Foster youth funds are appropriated annually, and funds can be used for tuition and fees, books, meals and housing, including recess, intersession, winter break, summer break, and supplemental housing, summer college preparation programs, advisement, tutoring, and academic support. However, please note that should not be used to supplant already existing college services. And also medical expenses, including vision, dental, behavioral, and primary health care, which are not otherwise covered by an eligible student's health plan. Note, most FYCSI funds are used as direct aid to the student in the form of financial aid for the student's cost of attendance at the college or university, or to reduce loan debt for the students, and that's perfectly fine. Specific questions about use of funds can be directed to SCD at the fosteryouth@nysid.gov mailbox. And we'll try and put that email address down in the chat if you don't have it at some point. SUNY and CUNY sector liaisons will provide SCD with a sector-wide FYCSI application. So you don't have to worry about that, SUNY and CUNY folks. Your sector liaison will handle the application. But private colleges will provide SCD with their application, their campus-specific application, which will describe how the funds will be used on their respective campuses for their students. All right. SCD recently emailed colleges and universities with the following items: an FYCSI memo with steps for your respective sector. That would be SUNY, CUNY, or private independents. An FYCSI student application list template, or you'll see it as an Excel spreadsheet, as well as an OCFS consent form for new foster youth applicants. We also included an FYCSI frequently asked questions information sheets, FAQ. So let's talk about step number one. The first step for colleges is to identify an FYCSI liaison for your campus and contact your sector liaison. FYCSI campus liaisons serve as the points of contact at your college regarding program matters. FYCSI campus liaisons maintain the lists of FYCSI eligible students and submit rosters to their designated sector liaisons. So let me introduce these superheroes, these sector liaisons. At SUNY, we have Osei Ajaman, and you can see his email there. At CUNY, we have Dr. Shirley DePena, and you see Shirley's email there. And for private and independent colleges, again, that host an HEOP, you see Rich McMillan's email there. Step number two, each FYCSI campus liaison prepares the FYCSI student applicant list using the spreadsheet that SED provided, that SED spreadsheet template. This spreadsheet list will include both previously verified students as well as new applicants. FYCSI campus liaisons also distribute and collect consent forms and other mandatory documentation from all new applicants. And I'll stress that a few times. Completed consent forms, the new part, completed consent forms from foster youth will be forwarded to OCFS for eligibility verification. Regarding required verification for orphans, orphan applicants should submit verification documents directly to their schools. You can send it to your campus liaison, where the college and the FYCSI liaison will develop a process for reviewing such documents. And you can consult with your sector liaison as needed if you need any help with trying to develop that. Let's talk about the FYCSI spreadsheet. Again, there's a tab for entering the information for new applicants. Call it tab number 1. But there's also another tab, number 2, to enter previously verified students. These students received FYCSI funds in prior years, and again, I want to stress this, are not subject to additional verification processes. For all applicants, enter each student's status, either foster youth or orphan, and you'll see that in the eligibility column, I believe column H. Consent forms are required, again, here we are, I'm going to stress it another time, for all new foster youth applicants to verify and share their eligibility status. I'm going to say it the opposite. Students who have been previously verified or previously received these funds do not need to complete a consent form. FYCSI campus liaisons must send completed forms to OCFS, and there's an email address right there, by July 15th. SUNY and independent colleges must submit their FYCSI spreadsheets to their sector liaisons by July 15th as well. And Dr. DePena does things a little bit differently for CUNY, so that's why I left CUNY off that one. All right, let's go to step 3. Sector liaisons at SUNY, CUNY, and the State Education Department will send FYCSI sector student spreadsheet lists and documentation to OCFS. After they receive and compile the documents sent in by the colleges on July 15th. So again, so you'll send that into your sector liaisons, and then we'll compile that for you after July 15th and send that off to OCFS. We hope that that will take about a week's time for that handoff. Step 4, OCFS sends SUNY, CUNY, and SED eligibility determinations, both for eligible and ineligible applicants. OCFS cannot opine on students who have not submitted a consent form, which is why we keep stressing that new students seeking verification need to complete a consent form, particularly those who are looking for foster youth eligibility determinations. SUNY, CUNY, and private school liaisons should communicate eligibility status to all FYCSI student applicants and share information about an appeal process. So if a student is determined as ineligible, it could be because they didn't provide a consent form, or it could be because the information isn't available to verify a student's eligibility. And you can talk with the student about their status and develop an appeal process. Sector liaisons then alert OCFS about any students that will be providing additional information regarding their foster youth eligibility status. So saying, hey, I think a mistake was made. I think I am eligible. I have some additional documentation. You'll communicate that to your sector liaison. And then the sector liaison will let OCFS know. We're going to try and review these students again. Step 5, SUNY, CUNY, and private school liaisons will communicate decisions to all students who sought an appeal. Sector liaisons will provide an updated verification list to SED, let's say in the third week of August, and then SED will develop a funding formula for the three sectors, SUNY, CUNY, and the privates, for review by the Division of Budget, DOB. This funding formula is based on the number of eligible students by sector at SUNY, CUNY, and the private colleges and universities. Funding will be distributed in equal amounts per student to SUNY, CUNY, and the private schools. Step number 6, SED provides DOB with a breakdown of the funding amount per student in each of the three sectors. Step number 7, after DOB approval, SED distributes the funds. SUNY admin and CUNY admin are sub-allocated their funding. SED prepares contracts with the private colleges and universities based on their approved FYCSI student participant list and the work plan that you provided to us in your applications. This is important. Individual campuses determine each student's financial need, and the actual student awards are based on that determination. Let me just say quickly, what that means is we have a funding formula per student, which allows us to determine how much your campus will get, but each student doesn't have to get the same amount because you can base that on what their needs are. All right, let's go to step 8. Schools can award, if they have any leftover or extra funds to students, if applicable. There are times when sometimes a student isn't there or what have you, and there could be some leftover funds. Schools have the discretion to award any remaining FYCSI funding after the official program enrollment deadline has passed. If additional FYCSI students are identified after this process, extra funds may be used for students verified as eligible. Eligible students identified after July 15th that received FYCSI funds in prior years are eligible to receive leftover extra funds based on their need as determined by the college and whatever available funds you may have. And if a new student is verified to be eligible for FYCSI after the September distribution of funds, contact your sector liaison on how to proceed, as leftover extra funds may be available and may also be used to support these students based on their need as determined by the college, and again, possible available funds. Let me also share that a FYCSI final report spreadsheet on how your FYCSI funds were used will need to be completed by the campus liaison in the coming months. And details and deadlines for that will be forthcoming. And that's what I have. Thank you very much for your time and attention.
Thank you, Chris. Very detailed overview. Now we wanted to just give you talk a little bit more about student eligibility, which Chris did cover in his presentation. But just to remind people a little bit about the eligibility for the program. So in terms of eligibility, there are 2 requirements to be eligible for the FSCE funding. First, being a foster youth, students who have spent any time in foster care after the age of 13. And this includes students who were subsequently reunified with their birth families or were adopted after their 13th birthdays. Students who are without lawful immigration status or who fall within a category of individuals outlined in category 661BI of the New York Education Law are eligible for FSCE consideration as well. In terms of orphan status, students who became orphans after the age of 13 are also eligible for the FSCE funding, meaning both parents are deceased, and financial aid administrators may use their professional judgment to dependency to to dependency override in unusual circumstances for students claiming orphan status. Next, we just wanted to talk to you about a little bit more about eligibility. Eligible students must also be enrolled in one of these higher education institutions, CUNY, SUNY, and/or a private college or university in New York State. And the private schools must operate a higher education opportunity program. However, the students do not need to be enrolled in the HEOP program to be eligible for the FISCE program. Now, with that, I would like to introduce Ken Curtin from the New York State Office of Children and Family Services to talk a little bit more about student identification and verification of the foster care status.
Thank you very much. Hello, everyone. Good morning. My name is Kenneth Curtin. I work with the Office of Children and Family Services. I'm the program manager and also the education training voucher coordinator for New York State. So I want to talk a little bit about tips and strategies to identify the foster youth students at your schools, as well as we're going to talk a little bit about the OCFS consent form. So the first thing around making sure that information around this program, FISA, gets to your young people is to really have a great awareness about the program. As you could see by earlier discussions, there's a lot of steps to take, and there's a lot of things to do in order to be made eligible for this program. So just to have an awareness around that to make sure that no young person falls through the gap. Another thing that is super important for schools is to identify the foster care students early, not only because of FISA and the funds and the services that can be provided under that program. There's so many other financial aid awards available for foster youth students. And I'm happy that earlier it was said that next month there will be a webinar about some of those other resources. So it's very important to identify the young people that have a foster care status attending your school. One way to get that information is to include a foster care identification question on the college admission application. This would be a great way to identify the students that have foster care experience that's attending your school. And another way is from the FAFSA form, question 53. It asks if a student has foster care experience after their 13th birthday. So these are two great ways to find out if a young person have foster care experience, and also is a way to connect them to the services and the resources that they are eligible for. And I think it's also really important to implement targeted communication efforts when it comes to talking about foster care status and identifying oneself as a foster care student. I've found, which is speaking to a lot of young people, that they may not feel comfortable checking a box saying that, you know, I was once in foster care. So to have a conversation that the answer to this question will help them receive services, will help them receive funding and resources, is really important to frame the conversation around that, because a young person would like to know, why am I checking this box? What will happen if I self-identify as a foster care alumni? So I think by having that conversation and explaining it to them, that this is a benefit to them, to make sure that they leave with hopefully no student loan debt or a reduced amount of student loan debt, is very important. And next, I'm just going to talk a little bit about the consent form. As it was stated before, all new students who may be eligible for FISA funding must complete a OCFS consent form where we will determine eligibility. So any student who spent time in New York State foster care at 13 and after, they are eligible to fill out the consent form. As it was stated, previously funded students do not need to complete another consent form. I will say this, unless their school changed. And why this is important is so that they do not fall through the gaps. So I'll give an example. If a SUNY student was made eligible because they filled out a consent form, but then they transfer to, let's say, a private eligible college, it's just a way to identify that that student should now be getting funding at the other school. It will not be a recheck on their status, because once you are made eligible based on your foster care or orphan status, you are always eligible due to that status. So it's not a recheck to see if you were in foster care, or recheck to see a student's orphan status. It's just a way to identify that this student is now attending another school, and to give a heads up to those administrators that this student is eligible for funding. Some of the things that are on the consent form is the name, previous name, and I want to emphasize this. It is very important for the young adults filling out this application to put a previous name. It's a way for us to check in our system that this person was previously in foster care, but under a different name. We'll also ask for date of birth, and then they will give consent to share the information on the consent form with SED as well as the school. The second part, students who spent time in foster care outside of New York State would need to provide documentation to their school. And one of the following would be helpful: is either family court documentation, a documentation from the child's attorney or from a court-appointed special advocate, and also a direct verification from a local or state child welfare office. And I want to say again, around this, it's so important to have conversations with your young people that may have experienced foster care, because if OCFS, we can only see if they were in foster care in New York State. So if we were to make someone ineligible, that may not be the case. By having a conversation with this young person, you may find out that the young person was in foster care in Texas. So if they can provide that documentation showing that they were in foster care in Texas, then they can be made eligible. So it's just really important to have these conversations once you've identified who has foster care experience in your school. And thank you. I will be a part of the Q&A, so if anyone has any further questions, I will be available to answer them. Thank you.
Thank you, Kenneth. Now I'd like to invite Shirley DePena from CUNY and Ose Ajiman from SUNY, who will share how their institutions will be implementing the Foster Youth College Success Initiative at their higher education institutions for the coming academic year. First, Shirley.
Good morning, everyone. It's wonderful to be here with all of you. So I wanted to talk a little bit about the FYCSI program at CUNY. And as Dr. Fernando mentioned earlier, we do run the program at CUNY a little bit different. So one of the first things that is different is that we have centralized the process of FYCSI, so that instead of every campus submitting their list of eligible foster youth or orphans for the program, all of the eligible student lists come from me directly to OCFS. And I also communicate directly with the students and let them know that they are potentially eligible, and send them the consent form and gather them before I send them to OCFS. The reason that we do this is because one of the things that we are doing at CUNY is that we are looking to support our students in a manner that supports them holistically. We're not just looking to support students in one avenue. We know that the youth that we are working with are youth that need supports from a lot of different areas. And one of the things, and we want to make sure that we cover all of those areas for our students. So we really support our students in 5 major ways. One of the things that we do is we bring on social work interns, and those social work interns are connected to our students that are in the program. And the social work interns meet with the students regularly. They work with the students on anything that the student needs in order to be successful. So that may be I'm having trouble with my FAFSA. I don't know what to do. I need to, a professor won't, respond to my emails. How do I handle that? Help me write this email. We can also connect students to the services that they need. So our social work interns can refer students for mental health, can help them create a resume and help them find an internship or a part-time job. So really looking at what it takes to support a student fully and making sure that that student has what they need. Another area that we support students is our academic support services. We know how important it is for students to navigate CUNY. And we know that a lot of our students, this is their first time in college, and they haven't had anyone really talk to them about it or talk to them about it in a way that's supportive. So we make sure that our students are regularly looking at their transcripts and at everything that they need to do, taking the right classes. We make sure that our students are getting academic support services like tutoring. We help students build their educational action plan so that they know the classes that they should be taking. And that leads into our enhanced academic advisement. We make sure that our students are going to advising. A lot of students come to CUNY, as I said before, and have a very difficult time navigating the system. And so we want to make sure that those students are going to advising, getting what they need. The next one is the community leadership building. We offer workshops and programs and services to give students a different kind of education at CUNY. We provide financial literacy workshops and different workshops that also support a student's education. And then the last thing is we do provide financial supports to students. Our funds have been used to pay tuition balances, to pay for winter and summer courses for students. And we also provide housing and direct aid to students. So we want to make sure that we support our students in a manner that reaches every part of who they are. Thank you.
Hello, everybody. I'm the Foster Youth College Success Initiative Coordinator for SUNY. And my colleagues so eloquently put together and discussed with you already kind of the process for identifying students and what the funds are used for. But specifically, we function just a little bit differently as far as CUNY versus SUNY. As it was put, the students would receive their consent forms, would complete and send their consent forms to OCFS. What we prefer is to consolidate that. So you as, if there's the financial aid liaison, as well as the director, is kind of the first line of, I don't want to say of defense, but our first line of help or communication to reach out to the students who would be eligible that are attending a SUNY. So when those rosters are submitted to me, along with the consent forms submitted to me, that would be helpful, and then they would be forwarded to OCFS. A student can submit the consent form and go directly to OCFS, but it makes life a whole lot easier as far as the eligibility process for both institutions, for SUNY system as well as OCFS, if they receive all the names together. So I just wanted to clear that up. Also, I just kind of want to go into, this was already discussed earlier about what the funds are used for. Just tapping on, knocking on and tapping on some of the specifics that a youth in care would be going through in that transition. And number one is the transition out of care, going through their transition plans and going into the process of coming out of care, some of the key factors and challenges that they'll be going through. The uncertainty also to whether to identify or not, whether they should, let everyone know what their status is. There's always anxiety with that. Also, some challenges they're coming into some challenges as far as with health as well. Financial barriers, of course, coming into uncertainty. And of course, we have food security, and not just during the semester, but in between breaks. Food and actually housing uh, stability in between, because some campuses, they kind of, close, they shut down the dorms. Where do I stay in between? So some of those challenges are there. So they're kind of caught in that conflict. Do I identify or do I not? That I don't have any place else to go home to. Um, Acclimating to student life, just having the normalization of the college experience. How much of that do I reveal? Lack of parental and guardian support is another challenge as well. It's more than just what's said. It's kind of the unspoken things, the care packages, the check-ins and everything are some of the challenges that a youth in care might encounter. So some of the uh, the things that are covered was mentioned earlier: tuition and fees. Of course, sometimes with campuses, fees may be more than tuition. Books, transportation, housing, inclusive of recess housing in between breaks, which we discussed. On-campus tutoring, and it was clearly stated by Dr. Fernando that this is outside of what's freely covered on the campus. We don't want to replace. Technical equipment. Some may have labs, may need technical equipment, and personal expenses. And we always challenge our financial aid directors and officers to kind of explore the cost of attendance formula to be tailor-made for youth in care. And also medical expenses, which covers, primary care, mental health, care, vision, and also dental. And if you have any more questions, we'll be here for the Q&A. Thank you.
Thank you, Jose. We are now ready for the Q&A. We have received some questions in the Q&A box. We ask that you please use the Q&A box for your questions so that we can answer them properly. Some have been answered already, and we are going to go through the questions. The first question, I believe, is for Chris. You can probably answer this question. This is, I believe, referring to when you were talking about the application or the information and how you upload the information from the colleges. Is this the same as Access VR?
And my simple answer to that is no. And I hope that's not seen as a snarky response, but no, I would not want anyone to confuse what we're talking about today with Access VR.
Thank you, Chris. And again, we're asking people to please use the Q&A chat and not the regular chat, the Q&A chat, not the regular chat. It will be difficult for us to go back and forth. And if we don't get to all the questions today, this morning, what we will do is put together an FAQ document with all the questions and the answers, and that will be available to everyone. We will send that out. The recording will be available on the website, in addition to any other materials that were referenced this morning. The next question is from Melissa Rivera. What can students do to access FISCI funding? So I don't know, Chris.
Do you want me to take that?
Go ahead, Shirley.
Well, I was only going to say, Melissa and everyone else, it really depends on the campus. I'm sorry, your sector. So Jose can respond for SUNY, for CUNY. The first thing that you should do is make sure that we have you on our list so that we know that you're one of our students. So if you're a current student, then we're already know that you're a student and you're eligible for funding. If you have specific questions, you can reach out to me. If you're not a current student, please make sure you get the consent form and send it so that we can have you on our list, so that we are awarding students, you're on that list.
I would second that for SUNY as well, to make sure the student completes the consent form. and can send it to me or directly to OCFS so we can verify the student. OCFS can verify the student and also include the student within your roster that you would submit as well.
Thank you, Osei. We have another question. Do we help with the college application process? And for FISA, we do not help with the Foster Youth Success Alliance. We do not help with the college application process. Children's Aid, we do work with our foster care youth as well as other foster care agencies. They do that individually. But for those foster youth that are not connected to an agency, if you can connect with us offline, and I will put my email in the chat, just to find out more information in terms of where are you located, we can connect you to individuals or groups that do provide support around the college application process and make sure you get connected to that information. The next question is for you, Osei. How do youth access intercession housing at SUNY?
Okay, that varies campus to campus as far as the availability of intercession housing. Most campuses do have some type of a housing dorm, but if a student needs additional funding and they're a Foster Youth College Success Initiative student, then they would reach out to the liaison, the financial aid liaison on the campus, would reach out to me about supplying the funds for the student during the break. So the availability and space is based on the campus, but every student that's a Foster Youth College Success student can be provided financial assistance for intercession housing, whether it be summer or winter.
Thank you, Osei.
Yolanda, I don't know if the question regarding do we help with the college application has been answered. Can I speak to that real quick?
I did, but if you have more information, please share.
Well, I just wanted to say that at CUNY, one of the other things that we're really trying to do is support our students with the application and all of their, from the beginning of their journey to college. So if a student is thinking of attending CUNY and needs to talk through some stuff, needs some help with the application, their agency, whoever can reach out to me, will connect with the student and make sure that that student has support from the very beginning, including college application, FAFSA application, so on and so forth.
Thank you, Shirley. And then there's a question, I think you answered it, Osei, about, I don't see it anymore, but that's okay, it was answered. The next question is, how can we get this information to local high school guidance officers? Which is a good question. We're happy to send this information or do presentations for high school guidance officers so they understand the program. So again, I will put my contact information in the chat, and if you can just get it, you can please reach out to me and we can work together to get that information to high school guidance officers.
Yolanda, can I also add that we
Sure.
actually, SUNY actually did a presentation for high school guidance counselors in New York State. And we're continuing to, do that. I think we did it in April, and we're looking at doing another one in the fall. So, as information comes, I'll forward to Yolanda, and Yolanda can forward it to whoever. So.
Thank you. Then the next question is, how can we find information on campus liaisons?
So I have a question about the question. So we send an email out to campus, we meaning SED, send an email out to campus presidents, and we copy the opportunity directors and the financial aid folk on that email, asking the campus to identify the campus liaison to us. And they do that to the sector liaison. Again, that would be Shirley, Dr. DePena for CUNY, Osei for SUNY, and Rich McMillan for the privates and independents. So I guess if you need to know who your campus liaison is, contact Osei, Shirley, or Rich, and we'll go from there. How's that?
Thank you. The next question is there any funding for schools to enhance these programs on campus? We are a community college that does not have an EOP program.
I don't think I can speak to that off the cuff. So I'm going to say no.
And again, we will have the answers to all these questions in an FAQ document that will be provided later. We will look into that to see if there's any additional funding.
Yolanda, can I make mention though, and then I think this is important, I see it in another question. Please know that if you are a SUNY college or university and you have students that are pursuing an undergraduate degree that you feel meet the eligibility criteria, then you're eligible for FYCSI funds. And I should also note that if you are a private college, a private or independent college or university, and your campus hosts an HEOP program, they're eligible for these funds. The students do not themselves need to be in an opportunity student. So I want to emphasize that. The student, their participation in EOP, Seek CD, or HEOP is not a criterion for eligibility determination. Okay, hope that helps.
Thank you, Chris. The next question, I think it's a comment, but July 15th is very early for a community college as we are open. We have open enrollment and most students in foster youth apply in August.
I think that's a very fair point, and I would like to acknowledge the fact that there isn't an ideal time deadline for when we want you to identify who your students are. We ask you to do the best you can. We realize that the longer we wait, the longer it takes money to go out, and that also has its own ramifications. So point taken. We acknowledge the point there, and we would just encourage you to do the best you can with projecting who will be on your campus.
Thank you, Chris. And the next question, I understand students that were in foster care in another state are available for these funds. Are students that were in some form of foster care system in another country also available to access these funds?
So I think I can take that. And Chris, you can back me up. I believe the answer is yes. We just need to be able to confirm that they were in foster care in another state and or country. So we need official documentation confirming that. Chris, am I right?
I believe so, and we would work with OCFS on that.
And we would work with those, yes.
Yeah, and Kenneth can
And Ken, yeah, Ken, you can jump in if you want to. As long as the documentation is official.
Correct. They would just need to show documentation that they were in foster care at 13 and after. So if it's from another country or another state and that can be provided, yes.
Thank you. And last question, because we are at time, we will answer all the questions that are in the chat and make sure that that gets back out to everyone. Can we still fund a student for 2021 that was just identified as a foster youth, and is the FAFSA required to provide funding?
I could take a stab at that. You know, I know Nelly. So yeah, if a student was deemed eligible for 2021, they can be funded if the funds are available already on the campus. If not, I can work with transferring over. That can be long as they're verified. As far as the FAFSA being required, that's, as far as Chris, you can follow behind me, that's not necessarily, it's just mostly their status as a youth in care. So we kind of have a little bit more flexibility as far as that area.
agree with that.
Can I just add to that, at least at CUNY, we have found it difficult sometimes to award students if they don't have a completed FAFSA on file. So it's okay if they, let's say, are not eligible for certain funding, but that they've completed the FAFSA and submitted it, or we have had trouble awarding the students. The other part to that is that once the FAFSA is on file, then we'll know their financial aid package. So if, for example, there's a balance that we want to cover, but they haven't completed the FAFSA and submitted it, we don't know if their Pell or TAP will cover the balance, which will then reduce the need for us to cover it. So you don't need a FAFSA, and you do. It's made it difficult to award. So I would go with complete the FAFSA, for in order for you to get funding.
I would second that.
Yes,
And also to examine why, as far as the completion of the FAFSA, why the student has not. It is really important to understand those little details. So.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for attending today's presentation.
Yolanda, Kenneth has his hand up.
Oh, sorry, Kenneth.
Oh, no.
Oh.
Good? Okay, sorry.
That's okay. Just thank you again, everyone, for attending today's presentation and for allowing us to go over a little bit. A recording of this webinar will be uploaded to the College Success Resource Guide website for future reference, along with the list of questions and answers that were provided on today's webinar. We also encourage you to visit the guide and find the topics and resources that will help you support the students for foster care you work with. And I put my information in the chat if you have any additional information. All the documents and again, the webinar and the PowerPoint deck will be provided. Thank you all again and have an amazing day and rest of the week. Enjoy your weekend, upcoming weekend. Thank you. Have a good day.
Thank you all.
All right.
Bye-bye.